What up? What up? What up? It's an early episode of the Shark Cove. Look, yesterday we kind of got cucked a little bit by the LCS running a little bit late. And by a little bit late, it was quite a bit late. And so, even if it ends on time, with the slate starting at the time that they do, at least tomorrow before daylight savings time kicks in, I wanted to go ahead and examine just a little quick hit of the LPL LCK slate. See, if we can find some places to attack, see what the pricing looks like, betting lines, all that types of good stuff. So we're going to do it a little bit different, but don't worry, we're going to do some underdog picks at the end. Maybe a little bit for the LCS. We're not really talking about that in this particular show. But if you're watching live, we'll do an LCS ticket. We'll put together an LPL LCK ticket. No projections, just straight off the top, and we'll see how we do. With that said, let's go ahead. Didn't mean to do that with the rhyming, but hey, I used to be a rapper at one time, so it just comes naturally, guys. It comes naturally. Let's talk about this first game here. I think this one's kind of sneaky. Not in a good way, but it's there. Like we have some pretty some high octane games on the slate tonight. Some bangers, if you will. This one doesn't look like that on the surface. Sandbox is absolutely reeling. Had a couple of hard, tough series in a row and has been demolished each one of those times. DRX, just overall not good. Plus 190 here. I think this is a place that we can avoid overall from a betting standpoint. I'm not really interested in one side or the other, but I will talk a little bit more about how this pertains to DFS as we kind of go through this. Oh man, looks like you missed the cash line by 0.9. What a fucking loser. Yeah, like, hey, you, D Moore, just incredible losers. I am sorry to even associate with you guys. Absolutely. Thank you. Hey, you're welcome, man. We're here for the people, and the people are who we are here for. Hey, remember to like and subscribe. If you're not, I know like half of the people that watch this video, or at least at its peak, do not subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps me. If we can get up to 1,000 people, we can monetize the show. We can do giveaways. We can do free rolls. We can do a whole bunch of different things, and not free rolls like the guy. We can actually do free rolls. I guess we could do him too, but we got to get consent first. Anyway, let's take a look at this game here. This one honestly doesn't excite me. Doesn't get the blood going. T1 has been on a roll. Hanwha had looked like they had gained some form, but it was definitely against some teams that weren't necessarily the top of the table when it came to the LCK. This line does seem a bit high. I probably, if I'm betting something here, I'm more interested in grabbing like kind of that plus 1.5. Maybe Hanwha sneaks a game. These games do, in my opinion, feel like that they're probably going to be pretty low kills. So I don't know if that's going to be something that we want from a DFS standpoint. Looks like the line's around 21.5 when we take a look at what these teams do on a historical basis. They're hitting that under 20 number quite a bit over for T1 and pretty similar numbers over here for HLE. So maybe you take a couple unders, maybe you take the HLE line, maybe you just don't bet it at all, and we move on to some of the more juicy games. This in particular is one that I think the line's probably right. Invictus against lesser competition throughout the course of this split have been very good, right? They are that middle of the pack team. They kind of, I think, have in some ways replaced OMG as kind of ascended just a slight level above. And then we have WE, who certainly can play up to Invictus's level. This is a team that was competitive against JDG, competitive against some other teams, but looked like shit other places. So look, plus 180 to me seems a little bit high. I think WE has a chance to win this series, and it's better than a 1 out of 3. So I probably take that. In terms of side selection, let's take a quick gander and see which one of these two teams has that. I think it is IG, so that does kind of downgrade a little bit, but nevertheless, we're looking for a dog, and if we want to bet a dog, WE is pretty much as good of a dog as we can get. LGD Top Esports, I think you take the plus 190, plus 1.5. LGD has looked better as of late. Probably should have beaten EDG. EDG, one of those top teams. This is actually top esports, not EGG, but I think LGD can take a game here. LGD does have side selection. This plus 650 seems a bit high. I'd probably sprinkle a little bit there on the plus 650, go a little bit, maybe like a unit on that plus 1.5, and then kind of just take this series from a live bet perspective. I do expect top to take care of business here. LGD, that series against EDG as a whole, like I feel like they probably should have won every single one of those games. The deficiency that they have in their team is still that they don't team fight very well. They aren't decisive, but at the same point where they're deficient, their EDG is really scaled up and been a much better team at doing that throughout the split. If that series was against EDG in the first 2 weeks of the split, LGD wins. Now, if it's LGD from the first 2 weeks of the split, then all hell is going to break loose and bets are off the table there. But LGD has looked better. They've done it against teams that are good too, which is one of the knocks that we always had on Anyone's Legend last split and some of these other teams that continually just beat up on the bottom of the table but have a hard time playing against the mid and top. And LGD took a game off of EDG, was competitive in the other two. I think that they can take a game off of top, especially with the side selection. So that's one of my favorite bets on the night. And then we've got Weibo versus RNG. Look, RNG started this split off terribly, right? It was a bad start. Angel finally gets in, and they go on a roll. They make that stupid change in the middle of the series against AL, and this team has not been the same since. That being said, this number does feel a little bit big to me. I like the plus 205. I think you can take RNG possibly to take a game, but that number isn't good enough for me. Again, I'm not betting a ton, so I'm not over analyzing this. If you want a little bit more on the straight bet side, I think you should go to Gelati's Patreon and take a look at what he has to offer. That's a little bit more of his expertise, more his specialty. He hasn't been playing as much DFS, but the bets are still out there. They're still there for you to take. They're still there for you to make. That being said, let's do something a little bit different. I've been doing this a little bit more myself throughout the course of the last week, and the results have been pretty good for me. So let's go ahead and stop that. Yeah, you see me right there. We're going to share a different window. Let's see if we can bring it up. You guys remember what this is. You've seen it before. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's see. Let's make this bigger. Take a look and just kind of examine a couple of the matchups that we have today. So, the Sandbox DRX series, DRX, obviously, 15.56, not a number that you want to see, but you are seeing this kind of consistent 14, 15, 16. That 15.5 isn't because they have, a ton of high numbers on one side or on the other. And that is the problematic side of things for Sandbox if you want to take that side of the favorites, or, God forbid you want to play DRX. The problem being, of course, that DRX doesn't do anything when they lose. These numbers in a 2-1 series are just not going to cut it. So you have to then assume that DRX is going to 2-0. And they're going to 2-0 in such a fashion that you're going to be able to make your money back. Quite frankly, if I wanted to bet DRX to 2-0, I'm probably betting DRX to 2-0. And I think that if you do that, what was I don't even know what the odds are. Who cares? I'm not going to look at it. But rest assured, the better bet would be bet just the spread that they sweep as opposed to like 4 stacking or 3 stacking. When we go over to Sandbox, remember that's 15 kills. This is not a team that has been particularly bloody. They've been on kind of a little bit of a slide here, losing to KDF, KT, and Gen G. No shame in 2 of those, but the KDF series kind of stings. And they've done it in a way where they're just not getting kills when they lose too. So again, if you want to play them, they've had some games, they've had some outliers where you could say that this team could be something to take a look at. But on a 5-game slate where they potentially drop a game, I don't know if that's possible or plausible or something that I want to do. That being said, if we go over to HLE, it's kind of the same type of situation here. Not a team that gets a lot of kills, not a team that gets a lot of kills when they lose, and not a team that gives up. I mean, these numbers are paltry. They're low all the way through, a 19.25 average game. Whereas you have T1 over here, same type of situation. 23.5. They've had some bigger games, and the kill participation is there. But again, you're hoping for a 2-0, which I think is plausible. This team hasn't lost in a while. But they seem content at this point to kind of just trolling. They're playing with new picks. Whether those work or not is completely, dependent on the situation. And they don't always get all of the kills that you need. They're pretty expensive. You can get some interesting T1 lineups, but those are some things that you might want to think about if you're thinking about playing some T1. Let's take a look over at the LPL. First and foremost, we've got Top Esports. This team is averaging 25.8 kills per game. That's between the two teams in wins and losses, and 18.8, 16.2. So look, they've had some big outputs. The other thing that is nice about Top is if they do happen to lose a game, they tend to get a lot of kills in those situations. And if we go down to LGD, this is a team that hasn't been giving up as many kills recently, but they've been playing better. They've been getting the kills. They've been kind of setting that tone. And that's something to consider here. But when we talk about the competition and taking a step up, they've had a pretty tough run of it recently. It's funny though, because the start of their split was against a pretty weak bunch of guys. RA, AL, Up, NIP. So I don't know. I don't know if Top is the place to go. I think it's a place a lot of people are going to want to go, but they are expensive. Most people, in my opinion, are probably going to find their way over to this IGWE series, and kind of rightfully so, right? You've got Invictus over here averaging 19.4 kills in a win, 18.5. The challenge is, of course, what they give up when they do win to the other team and what they get in their losses. This is not a team that, if things go poorly, has the ability to fight their way out of it. It's a snowball one way or the other. They're giving up a ton of kills or they're getting a lot of kills. When we take a look at WE, it's a little bit different. I think I favor playing a little bit of WE here because, like, if WE can win this series, potentially, as a 2-1, these kind of kill totals that they get in their losses are things that are joyous for DFS players to take a look at, right? You want them to get 11, 12, 13, 14 kills and lose, as long as they can win the other two games with similar kill totals or better, of course. And that has been something that, I don't know, has been a little bit more of a challenge for them. But of course, man, like, look, they give up a lot of deaths too. This game is probably going to be overowned. I think most people are going to go to Invictus, although they are a little bit of expensive. So maybe not. Maybe they're not as highly owned as they would be if the odds in this match were a little bit closer than they were. Finally, we have that kind of Weibo RNG series, and you can kind of see, the wheels came off right here. But prior to that, RNG was a relatively, a respectively bloody team. They gave up a fair amount of kills. A 16-17. This has always been somewhat of a modest team from that standpoint. And Weibo, I think, is pretty similar to that, right? They're not one of those teams that is getting the 10, 11, 12 kill wins at this point. They're there. They have them. Don't get me wrong. But they're also a team that I just feel is more around that 16 to 17 range. This is kind of just that series that, price-wise, it's going to be pretty close. You're going to be able to fit both of these teams in with a lot of the other big dogs on the slate, and as a result, you're in a good spot. I think ownership's going to be in both places. Let's take a look, though. Let's take a look at how this kind of looks. We're going to change this again because, of course, this has been changed and it doesn't work the way that I want it to. I think this is the right one. It is. All right. Let's see how these things work together. These are obviously not full projections, but let's take a look at it. T1, Top Esports. What can you get? What can you do? How does it feel? Nothing. Fuck it. But how about T1 and Weibo? Big favorite. Big favorite. Wow. Look at that. ADC captain. Yeah, you're playing Faker. But I think you can probably manipulate this in a couple other ways that make this attractive. When it comes to IG, obviously the other favorite. You can play a Gideon captain, get some exposure there. So that's kind of how you can play that T1 side of things. Now, if you're playing top esports and IG, doesn't work. But what about that IG Weibo stack? Can you go do that? You sure can. That's a pretty attractive one. Of course, it's just because the Shy is so damn cheap in comparison to some other guys. Oh, these favorites and their team slots, who's going to be the least expensive there? So if we won off, if we did something like this, Zhao is pretty expensive, isn't he? Huh. Wink is pretty expensive too. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to get a little bit creative. You could do a couple different things, maybe adding him. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know. Let's see something here. What about Top and Weibo? Not necessarily the most attractive. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is I think that Weibo is going to be pretty highly owned just because of how they fit. And so it's just a matter of, can you get creative, go with other teams, and maybe even just bank on the fact that RNG wins. I don't even know if you need to play RNG. I don't even think you need to play HLE. Just as long as those teams keep those series, from being sweeps, keep them being high scores, I think you can get into a couple different situations that feel really good. Of course, I think the one that feels absolutely delicious is something like this. Maybe not exactly like that, but you can get a Hope captain with top esports. You can get a Hope captain with Weibo, and that feels good. I mean, that feels real good, right? Those are all the pieces that you want. You can even get rid of this and do something like a sandbox or a T1, throw them in the team slot, do something crazy like that. I don't know. So, look, to recap, trying to make this video pretty quick so you guys can go ahead and get back to making your LCS lineups. Go ahead and digest this before the slate starts. Sandbox DRX, the big problem that we have is both of these teams are really low kill and losses. So again, as we've discussed many times throughout this split, when it comes to the LCK, you are looking for a 2-0. I don't think that DRX has that in them. I think that Sandbox does, but there's a good chance that DRX takes a game. And even if Sandbox sweeps, is this a team that is going to give you enough points that you're happy? And I don't know if you are. IGWE feels like whichever team wins, it is going to be in the optimal. I think IG needs to 2-0, 2-1. Either of those scenarios, they probably find their way into the optimal, but WE just absolutely will go bananas if they can win this series, whether it be in a 2-0 or a 2-1, probably even better in that case. T1 HLE, I think T1 does take care of business here. My concern being that they donk away a game or don't get a ton of kills and just want to get done and get out of there. That's a possibility to me, get their weekend over and get it started. LGD I think LGD takes a game. I think LGD is a team that I'm probably going to have a little bit of exposure in the main GPP, pairing them with a couple different teams, WE, IG, T1, Weibo, RNG, maybe just a little bit of everything. One of those situations where that, like, if they do hit, you want to get paid for it, right? But I think you can definitely throw a bet on them to take one of the games, the +1.5. Weibo, RNG, they're accurately priced in the sense that neither of these teams jump off the page at you. Neither of these teams really have instilled a ton of confidence. I think Weibo ends up taking this, and just the way that they're priced with the Shy and Xiaohu and everything does make some of your lineup building, if you want to go light or Xiaohu as a captain, not necessarily as comfortable as you'd like. That's what I got. I'll be in the Discord, sweating the games, watching them with you. But other than that, we'll be back tomorrow, maybe with a little bit more long form, maybe with a guest. Who knows? I'll talk to you later.